The alarm bells rang through the crystal towers of Zephyr Prime like thunder rolling across mountains. Admiral Vextar's forearms moved quickly across the control panels, as red warning lights bathed his command center in an angry glow. His massive blue eyes studied the readings that made no sense. Something was coming toward their galaxy, and it was huge. "Sir, the deep space sensors are picking up an object moving at incredible speed," reported his communications officer. The young Zephyrian's voice shook with fear. "It's bigger than anything in our records." Vextar's silver skin rippled with worry patterns. In 3,000 years of Zephyrian rule over the Andromeda sector, nothing like this had ever appeared. The object was still too far away to get clear readings, but its energy signature burned bright enough to be seen from halfway across the galaxy. "Send emergency signals to all fleet commanders," Vextar ordered. "Call for an immediate council meeting. Every ship captain within 2 light years must attend." Meanwhile, in the Outer Rim territories, Commander Lisa Grant was having a perfectly normal day. She stood on the bridge of the colony ship New Horizon, watching her crew load supplies for the mining stations on Kepler 442. The ship was old but reliable, built by human hands in the shipyards orbiting Mars nearly 50 years ago. "Commander, we're getting a strange transmission," called out her radio operator, a young man named Danny Phillips. His face looked confused as he adjusted his headset. "It's really broken up, but I think someone's asking for help." Lisa walked over to his station. The message was indeed garbled, full of static and interference. She could only make out fragments, coordinates pointing to a location near the galactic core. The word "help" repeated several times, and what sounded like fleet identification codes she didn't recognize. "Could be pirates trying to lure ships into a trap," suggested her first officer, Lieutenant Ben Clark. He was a careful man who always thought about security first. "Maybe," Lisa replied, but something in her gut told her this was different. "Log the coordinates anyway. If we hear more reports like this, we might need to investigate." 3 sectors away, the Korthak War Council was already mobilizing. General Crixmoth stood before a massive holographic display showing star charts and fleet positions. His species looked like armored lizards that had learned to walk upright and carry weapons. The Korthak had built their reputation on military strength and had never backed down from a fight. This unknown vessel represents either a threat to be destroyed or a prize to be claimed, Crixmoth declared to his war chiefs. His voice sounded like grinding metal. Either way, the Grand Armada will be the first to reach it. The Korthak warships were things of brutal beauty. Each one bristled with weapons designed to crack planets and melt space stations. 300 of these vessels began moving toward the coordinates where their sensors said the mysterious object would appear. The combined firepower of the Grand Armada could turn entire solar systems into dust. Captain Alex Rodriguez had been having trouble sleeping lately. As commander of the human research vessel Discovery, he spent most of his time studying strange space phenomena and mapping unexplored regions. But for the past week, his instruments had been picking up gravitational distortions that shouldn't exist. "Dr. Kim, take a look at these readings," he called to his science officer. Dr. Rachel Kim was one of the smartest people he'd ever met, with a talent for solving puzzles that stumped everyone else. Rachel studied the data on her screen and frowned. "These gravity waves suggest massive objects moving at high speeds. Not just 1 or 2 ships, but entire fleets." She looked up at Alex with concern in her dark eyes. "Something big is happening, and all these forces are heading toward the same point in space." "Could be a major trade conference," suggested their navigator, but nobody believed that. Trade conferences didn't create gravity distortions visible from 3 star systems away. The Discovery was a small ship with a crew of only 25 people. It carried scientific equipment instead of weapons, which made Alex nervous about flying toward what looked like the largest military gathering in recent history. But his curiosity was stronger than his fear. "Set course for those coordinates," he ordered, "but keep us at maximum sensor range. I want to see what's happening without getting too close." Back on Zephyr Prime, the emergency council meeting was in chaos. Representatives from dozens of species filled the great assembly hall, all talking at once in their different languages. The universal translators struggled to keep up with the overlapping conversations. "The object is still too far away for detailed scans," reported the chief scientist. "But its mass reading suggests something larger than our biggest space stations. Could it be a natural phenomenon?" asked Ambassador Yeldena from the peaceful Stellaris Confederation. Her people preferred diplomacy to warfare and always looked for non-violent explanations. Natural phenomena don't maintain steady courses toward inhabited space, replied Admiral Vextar. Whatever this is, it's under intelligent control. The debate continued for hours. Some wanted to send diplomatic ships to make peaceful contact. Others argued for immediate military response. A few suggested evacuation of nearby systems, but they all agreed on one thing. They had never seen anything like this before. As the various fleets moved toward their convergence point, smaller ships throughout the galaxy picked up fragments of military communications. Cargo haulers changed course to avoid the area. Civilian transports requested new flight paths. Even the space pirates who usually operated in the region decided to find safer hunting grounds. Commander Grant received 2 more garbled transmissions over the next day. Each one was clearer than the last, but still made little sense. The coordinates remained the same, but now she could make out what sounded like human voices in the static. That was impossible, though. The nearest human colonies were hundreds of light years in the opposite direction. Danny, run those voice patterns through our linguistic analysis computer, she ordered. I want to know what language those people are speaking. The results came back an hour later and made no sense at all. The computer identified the language as English, but with pronunciation patterns it couldn't match to any known human dialect. It was as if someone had learned English from very old recordings and spoken it with an accent that didn't exist anywhere in human space. Captain Rodriguez had similar experiences aboard the Discovery. His long-range sensors were picking up energy signatures unlike anything in their databases. Dr. Kim worked around the clock trying to analyze the readings, but every scan raised more questions than answers. The unknown vessel was still days away from the convergence point, but already the greatest military powers in the galaxy were positioning themselves for what might become the largest space battle in recorded history. None of them realized that everything they thought they knew about the universe was about to change forever. The massive shape finally appeared on the long-range sensors of the assembled fleets. Admiral Vextar stared at his main display screen in complete silence. The object was a ship, but unlike anything he had ever seen. It stretched across space like a small moon made of metal, easily 3 times larger than the biggest Zephyrian dreadnought. Sir, I'm getting impossible readings from that vessel, reported his sensor operator. The young officer's voice trembled as he spoke. The hull appears to be made of some kind of unknown metal that absorbs most of our scanning beams. I can barely get any information about what's inside. The ship's surface was dark gray and smooth with no visible weapons or engine ports. Strange geometric patterns covered its hull like decorative artwork, but the patterns seemed to shift and change when viewed directly. Most disturbing of all, their life sign detectors showed nothing. The enormous vessel appeared to be completely empty. General Crixmoth studied the same readings from his command ship at the head of the Korthak Grand Armada. His reptilian features showed both anger and confusion. How can something that large have no crew? He demanded. Run the scans again. Sir, we've run them 6 times, replied his weapons officer. Either the ship is an ancient derelict with no living beings aboard, or their technology is so advanced that we cannot detect them. The Stellaris Confederation fleet had taken a position several million kilometers away from the other forces. Ambassador Yeldena believed in keeping peaceful distances until diplomatic contact could be established. Her ships were smaller than the Korthak warships, but carried powerful defensive shields, and the most advanced communication equipment in the galaxy. Begin transmission on all known frequencies, she ordered her communications team. Standard galactic greeting protocols. Let them know we come in peace. Admiral Vextar decided to take the lead. His voice echoed across space as he activated the most powerful communication array in the Zephyrian fleet. Unknown vessel, this is Admiral Vextar of the Zephyrian Empire. You have entered our territorial space. Please identify yourself and state your intentions. For several minutes, nothing happened. The massive ship continued its steady course toward the galactic core without any response. Then every communication system in all 3 fleets suddenly lit up with incoming data. The transmission was so powerful that it overloaded several smaller ships' computers and caused widespread system failures. When the chaos settled, every screen throughout the assembled fleets displayed the same message. It appeared in perfect Zephyrian script on Admiral Vextar's bridge, in Korthak battle language on General Crixmoth's displays, and in Stellaris diplomatic text on Ambassador Yeldena's monitors. Each species saw the message written in their own language as if the sender somehow knew exactly who was reading it. "This is Captain John Miller of the UES Leviathan. State your intentions." The simplicity of the message was somehow more frightening than any threat could have been. The unknown ship had not only detected all three fleets but had instantly analyzed their languages and computer systems well enough to communicate with perfect clarity. Admiral Vextar was the first to recover from his shock. "Captain Miller, I am Admiral Vextar representing the Zephyrian Empire, the lawful government of this sector. You are required to submit to inspection and registration according to galactic law." General Crixmoth immediately followed with his own demand. "This is General Crixmoth of the Korthak War Council. No single vessel will be permitted to ignore the combined authority of 3 galactic powers. Prepare to be boarded for security inspection." Ambassador Yeldena tried a different approach. "Captain Miller, I am Ambassador Yeldena of the Stellaris Confederation. We welcome peaceful contact with new civilizations. Perhaps we could arrange a diplomatic meeting to discuss your needs and intentions." The response came quickly and was broadcast to all ships simultaneously. Captain Miller's voice was calm and steady, with an accent that none of them could identify. "I am searching for missing colonies of my people. I have no quarrel with any of you and ask only for safe passage through this region." "What people?" demanded General Crixmoth. "We have records of every intelligent species in this galaxy. There are no missing colonies in our databases." "You call yourselves humans," replied Captain Miller. "Your species is unknown to our records." The word humans meant nothing to most of the assembled crews, but it sent shockwaves through several smaller vessels in the outer formations. Captain Rodriguez aboard the Discovery grabbed his communications console and tried to contact the massive ship directly. "Captain Miller, this is Captain Alex Rodriguez of the human research vessel Discovery. Can you hear me?" The response came not through the general broadcast but as a direct, encrypted transmission to Rodriguez's ship alone. "Captain Rodriguez, maintain your current position and do not interfere. This situation requires careful handling." Dr. Rachel Kim worked frantically at her science station, analyzing every piece of data they could gather about the enormous vessel. "Alex, look at these power readings," she called out urgently. "If my calculations are correct, that ship's energy output is greater than some small stars. If it's a warship, its capabilities would be beyond anything we can imagine." Meanwhile, Commander Lisa Grant had been monitoring the situation from her position at the edge of the gathering. The New Horizon was primarily a cargo vessel, but it carried enough sensors to track the major events unfolding nearby. When she heard the name Captain Miller and saw her instruments detect another human ship in the area, she made a decision that would change her life forever. "Danny, send a message to that Discovery ship," she ordered. "Tell them the New Horizon is standing by to assist if needed." The tension continued to build as the 3 major fleets struggled to understand what they were facing. The massive human vessel showed no signs of aggression, but its very presence had disrupted the balance of power that had existed in this region for centuries. General Crixmoth was losing patience with the diplomatic exchanges. His people had built their reputation on military strength, and he could not allow a single unknown ship to ignore the demands of the Grand Armada. "Captain Miller, you have 30 seconds to comply with our boarding request or we will consider you a hostile force." "I strongly advise against that course of action," came the reply. Captain Miller's voice remained calm, but there was something in his tone that made even the bravest Korthak warriors feel uneasy. Admiral Vextar tried to defuse the situation. "General, perhaps we should attempt further diplomatic contact before resorting to force." But Crixmoth was already giving orders to his weapons officers. "All ships prepare for coordinated attack. If this vessel will not submit to proper authority, we will demonstrate the power of the Korthak Grand Armada." The countdown began as 300 warships powered up their most devastating weapons. Captain Miller made one final transmission to all ships in the area. "I had hoped we could resolve this peacefully. All vessels stand down immediately or face the consequences. The last chance for peace was about to expire." General Crixmoth raised his clawed hand and brought it down like a hammer on his command console. "Fire all weapons." The space around the UES Leviathan exploded into brilliant light as 300 Korthak warships unleashed their full arsenal. Plasma cannons that could melt asteroids into vapor fired streams of superheated energy across the void. Torpedo spreads designed to crack the surface of moons streaked toward their target like deadly meteors. The combined firepower was enough to destroy entire space stations and level cities from orbit. The light show was so intense that several smaller ships had to activate emergency filters to protect their crews from the blinding flash. Captain Rodriguez shielded his eyes as the Discovery's sensors automatically dimmed to prevent damage. Commander Grant watched from the new horizon as space itself seemed to catch fire. "Direct hits on target," reported the Korthak weapons officer with satisfaction in his voice. "No ship can survive that level of concentrated firepower." For almost a full minute, the energy discharge was so bright that nobody could see anything through the glare. When the light finally faded and the space cleared, Admiral Vextar stared at his sensor readings in complete disbelief. The massive human vessel hung in space exactly where it had been before the attack. Not only was it undamaged, but there wasn't even a scratch visible on its hull. "Impossible," whispered General Crixmoth. His reptilian face showed shock and growing anger. "Run damage assessment scans on that ship immediately." The scans came back showing 0 damage. The UES Leviathan's hull hadn't just survived the attack, it had absorbed it completely. There were no burn marks, no dents, no signs that hundreds of the most powerful weapons in the galaxy had just struck it. Captain Miller's voice came across all communication channels again. This time there was disappointment in his tone, like a parent speaking to a child who had misbehaved. "I had hoped we could resolve this peacefully. You have 30 seconds to stand down." Admiral Vextar immediately began broadcasting to his fleet. "All Zephyrian vessels begin emergency withdrawal. Move to minimum safe distance immediately." His forearms worked frantically across his control panels as he realized they were facing something far beyond their understanding. Ambassador. Yeldena was already ordering her ships to retreat. The Stellaris Confederation had always believed in avoiding unnecessary conflicts, and this situation had moved far past anything they wanted to be involved in. "All ships fall back to the outer perimeter. Do not engage under any circumstances." But General Crixmoth was not finished. The Korthak military culture was built on never showing weakness or backing down from a fight. To retreat now would mean admitting that a single unknown ship was more powerful than the entire Grand Armada. His pride would not allow such humiliation. "All ships prepare planet-killer missiles for launch," he ordered through gritted teeth. "If conventional weapons cannot damage this vessel, we will use weapons banned by galactic treaty." His weapons officer hesitated. "Sir, planet-killer missiles are forbidden by the Galactic Accords. Using them would make us war criminals. There are no laws when facing an unknown threat to galactic security," Crixmoth replied coldly. "Launch all missiles on my command." The planet-killer missiles were massive weapons designed to crack the core of worlds and render entire systems uninhabitable. Each missile carried enough destructive power to split a moon in half. The Korthak fleet launched 12 of them simultaneously, creating a wall of approaching death that should have been able to destroy anything in space. Captain Miller made no threats this time. No warnings came across the communication channels. Instead, something impossible happened that would be remembered and discussed for centuries to come. The UES Leviathan didn't fire any visible weapons. No energy beams shot out from its hull. No missiles launched from hidden bays. Instead, ripples appeared in space itself around the massive ship. The ripples looked like waves moving across the surface of a still pond, except they were moving through the vacuum of space where no waves should be possible. Dr. Rachel Kim watched her instruments in amazement as the ripples spread outward from the human vessel. "Alex, these readings don't make sense," she called to Captain Rodriguez. "It's like they're manipulating space-time itself." The ripples moved faster than light, reaching the incoming planet-killer missiles in seconds. When the waves touched the weapons, the missiles simply stopped existing. They didn't explode or break apart. They just vanished completely as if they had never been built. But the ripples didn't stop with the missiles. They continued expanding outward until they reached the first line of Korthak warships. When the waves passed through the vessels, something extraordinary happened. Every ship's engines immediately shut down. Their weapons powered off. Their shields collapsed. Life support systems switched to emergency backup power. The effect spread through the entire Grand Armada like a disease. Ship after ship went dark as the mysterious ripples passed through them. The crews were unharmed, but their vessels had become helpless floating hulks in space. General Crixmoth watched in horror as his own command ship's systems failed one by one. Emergency power to weapons, he shouted. But his officers could only shake their heads helplessly. Nothing was responding to their commands. The ripples continued outward, reaching the retreating Zephyrian and Stellaris fleets despite their attempts to escape. Admiral Vextar's massive dreadnought went dark just like the others. Ambassador Yeldena's diplomatic vessel lost all power, except for basic life support. In exactly 4 minutes and 12 seconds, over 800 of the galaxy's most advanced warships had been reduced to floating metal shells. The crews were alive and uninjured but completely helpless. Only the smaller human ships at the edge of the formation had been spared, though nobody understood why. Captain Rodriguez found that the Discovery still had full power and all systems operational. Why didn't it affect us? He asked Dr. Kim. I don't know, she replied, studying her readings carefully. Maybe because we're human too? Or maybe their technology can distinguish between different types of ships. Commander Grant discovered that the New Horizon was also unaffected. Her cargo ship's engines still worked perfectly and all her equipment functioned normally. She stared out at the hundreds of darkened warships floating helplessly in space. The UES Leviathan began moving again, its massive bulk gliding silently through the field of disabled vessels. Captain Miller's voice came across the communication channels one more time, speaking to the thousands of stranded crew members throughout the dead fleets. Medical and supply ships will be dispatched to assist your crews. Consider this a demonstration of what happens when diplomacy fails. I suggest we try talking instead of shooting next time. The greatest military powers in the galaxy had been defeated in less than 5 minutes by a single ship using weapons they couldn't even understand. Everything they thought they knew about warfare and technology had just become obsolete. Admiral Vextar sat in his command chair, surrounded by darkness as emergency lighting cast strange shadows across his bridge. His flagship's main power had been completely shut down by the mysterious ripples from the human vessel. Only basic life support was working, giving his crew enough air and heat to survive while they waited to see what would happen next. Sir, I'm detecting a small craft approaching from the direction of the human ship, reported his sensor operator, working on battery-powered backup equipment. It's moving toward our docking bay. The craft was unlike anything in their databases. It seemed to bend light around itself as it moved, making it difficult to track visually. When it reached the Zephyrian flagship, it passed through the outer hull as if the metal walls didn't exist. No cutting tools were used and no explosions occurred. The human vessel simply appeared inside their docking bay like a ghost becoming solid. 3 figures emerged from the craft wearing what appeared to be armor, but the material looked almost alive. It shifted and flowed like liquid metal while maintaining a solid protective shape. The leader was tall and broad-shouldered with graying hair and calm blue eyes. His 2 companions were a woman with short brown hair and a younger man with an easy smile. I am Captain John Miller, the leader announced as he walked onto the bridge. His voice was steady and confident, showing no fear despite being surrounded by potentially hostile aliens. This is Commander Susan Blake and Lieutenant Pete Johnson. We need to talk. Admiral Vextar studied the humans with his 4 eyes, noting how similar they looked to several younger species in the galaxy. The basic body shape was almost identical to the Stellaris people, though the humans appeared slightly taller and more muscular. You have disabled our entire fleet with weapons we cannot understand. What more is there to discuss? Captain Miller gestured toward the main display screen, which flickered to life despite the ship's power problems. Images began appearing on the screen showing star charts and historical records. We need to discuss why your languages contain human root words, why your creation myths speak of star travelers from beyond, why your genetic patterns show traces of human DNA. The images on the screen were impossible to ignore. Dr. Rachel Kim had been right about the linguistic connections, but the evidence went far deeper than anyone had imagined. Mathematical principles, artistic styles, even basic architectural designs showed clear human influences throughout multiple civilizations. This is impossible, Admiral Vextar protested. The Zephyrian Empire has existed for 3,000 years. Our historical records go back to the dawn of our civilization. Your records begin 3,000 years ago, because that's when our people first made contact with your ancestors, Captain Miller replied calmly. Earth faced a cosmic catastrophe long ago. We sent out dozens of ARC ships to preserve human civilization among the stars. Some of those ships found empty worlds to colonize. Others found primitive species that we helped guide toward intelligence and technology. Commander Susan Blake stepped forward, and activated a device on her wrist. The air above it shimmered and formed a three-dimensional map, showing the galaxy with dozens of bright points marked throughout the spiral arms. Each of these markers represents a civilization that shows signs of human contact or influence. The Zephyrian Empire, the Korthak War Council, the Stellaris Confederation, and 47 other major species. Lieutenant Pete Johnson spoke for the first time since entering the bridge. His voice was younger and more casual than his captain's. We've been asleep for most of the journey between stars. The ship's computers wake us up when long-range sensors detect human genetic markers or technological signatures. This galaxy lit up our sensors like a Christmas tree. Admiral Vextar's silver skin showed patterns of deep confusion and growing understanding. The evidence was overwhelming, but accepting it meant rebuilding everything he thought he knew about Zephyrian history. If what you say is true, then we are your descendants? In a way, Captain Miller nodded. Though many of your people evolved far beyond their original human heritage. We didn't create you, but we helped guide your early development. We gave your ancestors the tools they needed to reach for the stars. On the Discovery, Dr. Rachel Kim was running her own analysis of the linguistic evidence. Her computers had been working for hours comparing galactic languages with human speech patterns. The results were staggering. Alex, look at this, she called to Captain Rodriguez. The Zephyrian word for star comes from the Old English word stellar. The Korthak military ranks are based on ancient human naval traditions. Even their numbering systems show human mathematical influence. Captain Rodriguez studied the data with growing amazement. How is this possible? The human colonies out here are only a few hundred years old. This evidence suggests contact thousands of years ago. The UES Leviathan isn't a colony ship, Dr. Kim realized suddenly. It's one of the original ARC ships from Earth's first expansion into space. They've been traveling between stars for millennia, searching for the lost colonies. Meanwhile, on dozens of disabled warships throughout the area, similar conversations were taking place. Human representatives had beamed aboard the flagship of each major fleet to explain the situation. The technology they used seemed like magic to the alien crews, but the evidence they presented was impossible to deny. General Crixmoth received his human visitors with barely controlled anger. The Korthak leader's reptilian features showed his struggle to accept what he was being told. You claim my people are descended from primitive creatures that you helped evolve? This is an insult to Korthak honor. The human diplomat assigned to his ship remained patient despite the general's hostility. Your people evolved their own strength and courage. We only provided some early technological guidance and genetic diversity. The Korthak became warriors through their own choices and cultural development. Ambassador Yeldena of the Stellaris Confederation was more receptive to the revelations. Her people had always believed in peaceful cooperation between species, and learning about their human heritage actually explained many puzzling aspects of their history. This knowledge could bring all the galactic civilizations closer together, she suggested hopefully. Captain Miller stood before the assembled alien, leaders via holographic communication links connecting all the disabled flagships. His image appeared simultaneously on screens throughout hundreds of vessels. The UES Leviathan was sent to find and reunite the scattered children of Earth. But we discovered that many of you have grown into something greater than what we left behind. You've built civilizations that surpass anything we imagined possible. The admission hung in the air like a challenge to everything the galactic powers thought they knew about themselves. Some species felt pride in learning about their ancient human connections. Others felt anger at the suggestion that they needed help to achieve greatness. All of them realized that the balance of power in the galaxy had changed forever. The age of human return had begun, but nobody yet knew whether it would bring unity or chaos to the stars. 6 months had passed since the day the UES Leviathan appeared and changed everything the galaxy thought it knew about itself. Captain Rodriguez stood on the observation deck of the newly constructed Heritage Station, watching ships from dozens of different species work together to complete the massive space platform. The station would serve as a meeting place where humans and their descendant civilizations could share knowledge and build a better future together. The construction project had become a symbol of cooperation that nobody thought possible just half a year earlier. Zephyrian engineers worked alongside human technicians to install advanced power systems. Korthak warriors provided security, while Stellaris diplomats helped resolve disputes between different construction crews. Even species that had been enemies for generations found ways to work together on this shared project. Commander Lisa Grant had been appointed as the first human ambassador to the Galactic Heritage Council, a new organization that Captain Miller had helped establish. Her cargo ship, the New Horizon, had been converted into a diplomatic vessel, and she spent most of her time traveling between different worlds to facilitate cultural exchanges and technology transfers. The Arcturian delegation is requesting assistance with their terraforming project, she reported to Captain Miller during their weekly meeting. They want to use human atmospheric processors to make their new colony world more habitable. Captain Miller nodded from his chair in the conference room aboard the Leviathan. The past months had aged him visibly as he struggled with decisions that affected billions of lives across the galaxy. Approved, but send technical advisors only. We're not here to take over their projects, just to help when asked. The revelation about humanity's role in galactic history had created three distinct reactions among the various species. Some civilizations, like the Zephyrians and Stellaris Confederation, had embraced their human heritage and eagerly sought to learn more about their origins. They welcomed human technology and cultural exchange programs with enthusiasm. Admiral Vextar had become one of the strongest supporters of human-alien cooperation. His flagship had been the first to receive upgrades using human technology, and he now served as military coordinator for joint defense operations. The humans have shared more advanced knowledge in 6 months than we developed in the last century, he often told other species leaders. But not everyone was happy about the changes. General Crixmoth represented a growing faction of species that viewed human involvement as a threat to their independence. The Korthak leader had spent months organizing resistance, groups among civilizations that wanted to maintain their sovereignty without human influence. We fought for thousands of years to build our own empires, Crixmoth declared during heated council meetings. Why should we now bow to ancient ancestors who abandoned us long ago? The Korthak will not trade their freedom for human technology. The third group consisted of species that remained undecided about humanity's return. They appreciated the benefits of advanced technology and medical knowledge, but worried about losing their cultural identity if they became too dependent on human assistance. Dr. Rachel Kim had become the head of the new Galactic Research Institute, where scientists from multiple species worked together to unlock the secrets of human technology. Her linguistic analysis had expanded beyond language patterns to include cultural traditions, religious beliefs, and artistic expressions that showed human influence. We've discovered that human genetic material was integrated into 49 different species across the galaxy, she explained to a gathering of xenobiologists. But each species developed unique adaptations to their home worlds. The Zephyrians gained their four-armed physiology on a high-gravity planet. The Korthak developed their armored skin in a hostile environment. Humans didn't create these traits, we just provided the genetic diversity that made such evolution possible. Captain Miller faced his own difficult choices as leader of the human return mission. The original plan had been simple: find the lost colonies and bring them back into contact with Earth. But the reality was far more complex. Many of these civilizations had grown beyond their human origins and didn't want to return to Earth's influence. Sir, we're receiving another request from Earth Command, reported Commander Susan Blake during a private meeting. They want a full report on our discoveries and recommendations for establishing human authority over the descendant species. Captain Miller stared out at the stars through the viewport of his ready room. Earth's government still thought in terms of the old mission parameters: find the colonies and re-establish human control. They didn't understand that the lost children of humanity had grown into independent civilizations with their own rights and desires. Send them our cultural exchange reports and scientific findings, he decided finally. But make it clear that these are not colonies to be reclaimed. They are sovereign nations that happen to share our genetic heritage. The political situation became more complicated when separatist movements began forming among species that wanted complete independence from any human contact. Some groups went as far as banning human visitors from their territories and refusing all technology transfers. Lieutenant Pete Johnson had been assigned to work with Captain Rodriguez and the Discovery crew to monitor these separatist regions. Their job was to ensure that anti-human sentiment didn't turn into actual violence while respecting each species' right to self-determination. The Theta Centauri system has declared itself a human-free zone, Pete reported during a joint briefing. They're not being hostile, but they've made it clear that any human ships entering their space will be asked to leave immediately. Captain Rodriguez understood their position even if he didn't agree with it. Some people need time to process this information. Learning that your entire civilization was influenced by another species is a lot to accept. The Heritage Station project had become a test of whether different approaches to human contact could coexist peacefully. Species that embraced cooperation worked alongside those that maintained cautious independence. Even some separatist groups sent observers to monitor the construction and report back to their governments. Ambassador Yeldena of the Stellaris Confederation had emerged as one of the most effective mediators between different factions. Her diplomatic skills helped prevent several potential conflicts between pro-human and anti-human groups. The key is recognizing that every species has the right to choose their own relationship with humanity, she explained during a council session. Some will embrace full cooperation, others will maintain limited contact, and still others will choose complete independence. All of these choices are valid. Captain Miller stood on the bridge of the Leviathan as Heritage Station's construction neared completion. The massive space platform represented everything he had hoped to achieve. A place where humans and their galactic family could meet as equals, to share knowledge and build mutual understanding. But his sensors were also detecting something troubling at the galaxy's edge. Energy signatures that didn't match any known technology, human or alien, were appearing in deep space. Whatever had originally forced humanity to flee Earth might be returning, and this time the entire galaxy would need to stand together to face it. The human return had brought both opportunity and challenge to the stars, and the next chapter of galactic history was about to begin.